Hello, and welcome to the Cycle Starters podcast. This podcast is made just for you if you're breaking intergenerational patterns and turning ancestral wounds into creative potential, embodied joy, and intergenerational abundance. I'm your host, Heather Rebecca Wilson, and I'm passionate about ancestral healing and growth, as well as astrology and pleasure as transformative medicine. And I'm here to help elevate your consciousness and promote joy in your life. I truly believe everyone can become a cycle starter, reshaping their lineage and fostering growth and healing. Join me as I share enlightening insights and feature inspiring guests. We are here to support you in letting go of anything that's holding you back from your fullest expression in healing, growth, and transformation. So if you are ready to be inspired on your journey of transformation and create a life that aligns with your true self, then you are in the right place. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on our social media platforms. You can learn about what I do and how I can support you along your ancestral healing journey on my website, heatherrebeccawilson.com. Please connect with me, DM me any topics you'd like for me to cover. Share your takeaways, or even better, send me a screenshot of your review and I will send you a thank you gift. Now, let's get into it. We're here. We're doing this. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to introduce to you today my very special guest, another dear sister of mine, Xandrine Ayla. Hi, Xandrine.
Hi, Heather. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm
Another
so
beautiful
happy.
conversation that we get
Yes,
to have.
absolutely. I'm so happy to be here with you, and thank you for saying yes
Of
to
course.
letting me interview you on the podcast. And thank you for the amazing workshop that you recorded for the Ancestral Healing Collective that is in our resource library. And I'll be sure to say more about that a little bit later. But I want to start with your bio, okay? And then we'll get into our chat. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, perfect. So Xandrine is a manifestation coach, embodiment guide, and founder of Magnetic Manifester, a transformational coaching program that supports spiritual women to turn self-doubt into embodied confidence to consciously bring their soul-aligned vision to life. As a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, energy healer, and yoga teacher with over 1,000 hours of formal training, she uses a holistic approach that has helped hundreds of women embody their feminine energy of receptivity, flow, and ease, blending ancient practices with modern mindset techniques. Featured as LA Weekly's top 10 female entrepreneurs paving the way in 2022 and Yahoo's top 10 manifestation coaches to look out for in 2021. She is a best-selling author from the book The Keys to Authenticity, which she co-authored with Jack Canfield, and a podcast host of Filipina Unleashed. Xandrine is a world citizen having lived in 5 different countries, a martial artist, former actress, and international TV host of ESPN, and has written for multiple media publications such as Top Gear. So, I think there are some updates to your bio that you wanted to share. So what would you like to update us?
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that. It's so interesting how things have shifted since I shared that bio. Well, first off, yes, Filipina Unleashed is a podcast that I produced for the first half of 2024. And then I opened up my audience to women in general. And so my podcast that I am currently producing at the moment is called Magnetic Self. And things have shifted in my work as well. From, yes, I feel like I will always talk about creating your reality in a very conscious way, which is around manifestation. However, things have been shifting recently towards more of this work of bringing women back home to their bodies, to their sensuality, to their receptivity, to, yes, their feminine energy. I think that has been so present for me in the last couple months. And for me, when I create offerings, it's about deep listening and really feeling into the senses of my body And that is what's alive at the moment. And interestingly enough, that is also mirrored by what women have been coming to me for. So there is right now currently a brewing of a new offering within that space. And I am in deep creation mode at the moment. It's all about listening, tuning in, being guided by my healthy ancestors, my other spirit guides. And I love this process because it's just, it's really about bringing in what's true to you. And for me, that has been the process of my work. Not what I think will make me money, what not, sometimes in the past, that's what I've gotten into. But now it's about what do I really want to bring forward that I know that can support the collective in this present moment. So, yeah, those are the few updates.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for those updates. So, all right. Well, gosh, we could go in so many different directions, but I want to first let everybody know a little bit about your ancestors. So, what can you share with us about your ancestry?
Yeah, so there is a mix in my ancestry. For the most part, my ancestors are from the Philippines, specifically from the Visayas region, Iloilo, and then they migrated to Bacolod, which is now where my dad resides. And on my mother's side, from Ilocos Norte, interestingly enough, two of my great grandfathers on both sides are white men with blonde hair and blue eyes. Both of them were coal miners from Ohio that ventured out into Asia, into the Philippines, and intermarried with my Filipino ancestors. And so that ancestry from Ohio actually has connections with the Viking lineage. So I have, yeah, interestingly enough, my dad got that ancestry test just recently. And so we have the indigenous Malay, Philippines kind of ancestry, but also the white ancestry is from the Viking lineage. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting mix. When I am here right now, I am in the Philippines. I'm back in the motherland after not living here for 20 plus years. So that has been an interesting experience. And it has been really interesting for me because within this kind of mix, it sometimes brings this feeling of neither here nor there,
Mm-hmm.
where when I was living in the US, I didn't feel like I fit in. I wasn't, white enough to be, with that kind of feeling of being accepted or being included. But yet I come back to the motherland and still feel that I'm not quite Filipina enough. In fact, when I'm here, people are really surprised that I know how to speak Tagalog. They think that I'm a foreigner, which is interesting because I didn't get that before I moved away. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is wild. Well, thank you for sharing your ancestral background. And I love that we have the Visayan connection in common. My ancestors are from Leyte, Samar, and Panay. So you're my sister. We probably have common ancestors.
Absolutely.
And the Viking lineage is so interesting. I don't think I knew that. So that is really, really cool. And yeah, it's an interesting mix, as you just said. So you touched upon how you are in the Philippines right now after
Hmm.
living abroad and in
Yep.
the States specifically for like the past 20 plus years. And so I think that really leads into your ancestral healing journey. So, what can you share with our community about how that journey has been so far? Because I do think it helps other people who are new to this topic and very intimidated by ancestral healing. I think it helps to hear individuals' unique stories because everybody's journey is different. And there are so many ups and downs on this journey. It's not for the faint of heart.
No.
What has it been like? What has it been like for you? Please tell us whatever you feel comfortable sharing about it.
Yeah, first off, when I heard you speak that question, I was like, yeah, that is a loaded question. Where do we even begin? It has been quite the journey. And yes, it is not for the faint of heart, but however, it is so worth it. For me, what I can share about this journey of ancestral healing has been noticing patterns within my lineage from what I see directly from my parents, and then inquiring even further from my parents and from my aunts and uncles who are still alive and with us at the moment, just basically asking questions, piecing information together, and seeing what has been a pattern for various various generations that I'm also still seeing in me.
Mm,
And what's been really potent for me is I'm a mother, and I think that when I see my offspring, and I see my daughter, I have like this beautiful visual representation of my offspring and a representation of the next generations, and this deep inquiry of what stops with me.
mm,
What am I no longer available to pass on to her?
mm,
And what can I start instead so that we create a whole shift? I'm getting goosebumps as I say that. In fact, I'm feeling certain emotions that are bringing up tears. This is why I say it's worth it, because without this inquiry, without this awareness, and without this willingness to do the inner work, this shit just keeps going.
mm-hmm.
It's this pattern that without that awareness can just keep circling onwards for more and more generations. And why do we want to stop that? Because that has brought a lot of pain and suffering. And I think the big why for me is to shift that pain and suffering, to really understand where that's coming from, to understand if that's necessary, or can we shift it into something else where we're in a different time and space right now, and we're not exactly going through what our ancestors had to go through. Yes, they did suffer. They did go through a lot in order to survive. And I'm happy and I'm blessed to say that I'm in a different time and space right now where I have a number of privileges that they didn't have. And so I get to do this now. I get to shift things. And so, yeah, circling back to the journey, it's been about that question. If there's one thing that I can highlight, the question is, what stops with me? What am I no longer available to pass on to my daughter, and why? And what can I start instead? What are the stories that I desire to tell my daughter? What are the things that I desire for her to carry on to the next generations? It's about asking these questions and then doing the inner work.
All right. Well, so let's go even deeper. Can you
Yeah.
name some of what is going to stop with you? What are these patterns in your lineages that you are actively dissolving right now?
Yeah. So there's the shifting of victimhood
Mm,
and blame
mm,
into ownership. I think there's a lot of things that I can speak of, but I think that one piece is a huge highlight. And I see patterns of that within me up until today. I am a work in progress and I still see these patterns. And I have heard variations of the blame and the victimhood and the being a martyr, and also it's like, how could I share this without putting my relatives and my ancestors under the bus? You know what I mean? Like,
That's part of
um,
the challenge of this journey, right? That's a big part of it.
because in me sharing that, it's like the inquiry that comes up is like, am I blaming them? I'm not. I don't I want to be really, really mindful not doing that. It's like I see my ancestors with a lot of love and compassion. And I think that is the big piece that allows me to understand them and to
Mm-hmm.
not come from that blame and victimhood and saying that, no, I'm like this because they were like that. It's so easy to do that. But rather understanding the situation that they were in and how that was what they knew. And that's what was passed down. And one of the things that I always think of that I am privileged enough to have is that I have access to mentors, to coaches, to certifications, to thousands of hours of, training. And I'm such a voracious learner. I love learning and I'm so open to doing the inner work. And that was not accessible to them. They didn't have that. They may not have known what a shadow was. Like, what's a
Right.
shadow? What's inner work? What's, healing of your trauma? What is all that? And so, because I have that, I am blessed to say that I can do the inner work. Yeah. And as a result, I can look at where have I been operating from in Tagalog, we call it kawawa, which is,
Mm-hmm.
oh, look at
Oh,
you.
I
You're,
love my head.
yeah. How do we even describe kawawa? You're you're the person who didn't have X, Y, and Z. And so, oh, look at her. We should just, feel bad for her, feel sorry
Yeah.
for her.
Pity
Pity.
energy.
Yeah. And so I think what I received growing up was that story of I sacrificed so much for you. We did
Mm.
this in order for you to do this. And I think also that's a very common thing, not just in, what I heard, but within Filipino culture. As I dug deeper and I did more podcast episodes around Filipino Unleash, unpacking these patterns, I'm noticing that it wasn't just a pattern within myself, but it was also a pattern in the culture in general. So it's shifting that. It's shifting that. And to me, the opposite of that is ownership. Where, yes, we all got our cross to bear. We all got our various problems and challenges. But I think what makes a difference is what are you willing to do about it?
Yeah.
Because you can stay in that story. Oh, he did this to me. My mom was like this, and this has been going on for generations, and my ex was a narcissist, and you can have all these stories. And you can have those experiences and say, and you know what? I'm willing to look at the parts of myself that have allowed this experience in
Mm-hmm.
to be able to understand what healing needs to be done so that I am opening up to a different reality, that I'm opening up to a different experience because I am willing to shift my mindset, my embodiment, my energetics. And as a result, my outer reality will shift as well. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
I'm
I
fucking
love it.
passionate about it. And I'm like, when I say things like that, I get all like hyped up because that's where the work is.
Well, and we need your passion, and your passion comes through. It's contagious. And I really love what you're speaking to, the sense of ownership, because I do think for myself included, part of this work is, especially as a sacred space holder, somebody who mentors other people, we have to be in an energy of deep self-responsibility, right? And accountability with ourselves and integrity with ourselves. So yeah, I think that's super powerful and an amazing thing to model for your gorgeous, amazing daughter. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for your passion and sharing this message of empowerment, right? Moving out of victimhood and this whole martyrdom thing into, you know what, this happened to me and this is what I'm doing about it. So I think that's amazing, and
100%.
I applaud you and celebrate you for embodying that, not just saying it, but embodying it and walking your talk. So what I want to ask you next is slightly different because in
Okay.
the Ancestral Healing Collective, which is my monthly membership, we focus on transforming deep ancestral wounds into creative potential, shifts to higher consciousness, and embodied joy with the help of astrology and pleasure as transformative medicine. So, in terms of astrology, do you feel comfortable sharing your sun, moon, and rising sign with our
Yes,
community right now?
absolutely. I wouldn't be able to explain what all of that means, but I can leave
I'm
that
going to
to
try.
you.
I'm going to try.
All right. So I'm a Pisces sun,
Mhm.
Cancer rising,
Mhm.
and a Libra moon.
Okay.
So
All
I
right.
got a lot of water in me.
Yes, you are
Yeah.
very well. All these water signs in your big three, especially, make you incredibly psychic and intuitive, which we know. So Pisces is mutable water. So water represents our emotions, our feelings, our sentiments. And the interesting thing about Pisces, in addition to being the last sign of the zodiac, is that you are extremely multidimensional, probably more so than any other sign. And so the veil is very thin for you. And I'm sure it's especially thin right now, considering we are on the precipice of celebrating Samhain, Halloween, but also All Saints Day and All Souls Day in the Philippines. And you have a huge heart and you feel very, very deeply. And one of the challenges for this romantic dreamer that Pisces can be is that, well, the lower expression of Pisces is victimhood, actually. So, in this fear of like not being able to lead, and you are absolutely embodying the high expression of Pisces. But I love how your work deals with transmuting those lower expressions. And the wild thing about Pisces is that, when I tune into this energy of mutable water, it's like water without a container. Water that seeps into everything it touches. And so part of the growth journey, I think, for Pisces is learning how to set energetic boundaries, learning and knowing where you end and another person begins, instead of feeling everybody's stuff and being involved in everybody's stuff when it's like out of your control and actually zapping your energy. So that's your sun. That's where you shine. So you are very spiritual, very artistic, very creative, and very sensitive and very multidimensional, very psychic. And then you said you're a Cancer rising, correct? So
Correct.
Cancer is ruled by the moon. Your rising sign is your perception of reality. It's the vehicle for your divine mission in this life. And so your divine mission is around nurturing, which you're absolutely doing not only with your daughter, but with all of your clients, right? All of the people that you serve. And you're also, well, Cancer is like the secret entrepreneur. So you are definitely a wellness entrepreneur, doing your thing, forging your own path. And family is really important to Cancer. Okay, so those are your two water signs, and then your moon is Libra. So Libra is totally different. Libra is an air sign. It's cardinal air. And air represents our thoughts, our consciousness, our beliefs, and our communication. Libra is ruled by Venus, the goddess of love, money, and pleasure. And your moon is your emotions and your ancestral wounds. And most
Mm.
importantly for me, it's what you are responsible for giving to yourself in order to feel balanced and centered and at home in your own energy. And so, while Libra is so concerned with justice and balance and creating beauty in its highest expression, the lowest expression of Libra is people pleasing and also
Mhm.
suppressing your own feelings, your own thoughts out of fear of rocking the boat. So I do think that it's helpful to hear how other people do their moon. How do you do your Libra moon? How do you take care of your emotional life and your emotional side with this
Woo.
energetic signature?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you nailed it on the dot. Especially that piece with the Libra moon in terms of people pleasing. I think that's also intertwined with being a nurturer in being somebody who wears their heart on their sleeve. It has been an interesting path to navigate that. I've had painful moments of just being so much of that giver until I've had to learn how to create those boundaries. And they're healthy boundaries. It doesn't mean that you're a bitch. It doesn't mean that you care or love any less. It actually means that you're caring and loving more because you're caring and loving yourself.
Yes.
Which is super important because that starts with you. So if you're able to give yourself that, then you have more to give. Versus the person who's just like, yes, here's all this love, that I forget about myself, that I become depleted, that I become resentful, I'm lowering my energy, and then I'm not able to be the highest and best version of myself. So for me, that has been to create boundaries, whether that be physical, and I'll speak about the physical first. I have many moments of isolation. In fact, as a space holder, just this human having this spiritual experience and somebody who is growing and evolving and doing her inner work, I've had to isolate. I've chosen very intentionally to isolate in order to do this work. And that's okay. I do prefer nowadays one-on-one interactions as opposed to groups because that's where I'm able to drop in with a person and go deep, which is all that I'm really available for right now. I'm not available for this small talk, like, hi, but, energetically, it's just not a vibe. And so, yes, there's that physical boundary, but also energetic boundaries in the sense that if I am feeling, in spite of your very happy, smiley, welcoming attitude, I am feeling a vibe that's not congruent or in alignment to what you're showing me, I am not available for that. And I will create the energetic boundary and sometimes physical as well. Well, they go, I think, hand in hand. And I will unapologetically cut people out of my life as a result and love them from afar because I still think about them dearly. I think I still love them dearly, but I can say that I'm able to do that within the distance that I create.
Well, I think that this is a huge collective wound in our culture, but for female-bodied beings in general, but definitely in our culture, in Filipino culture, around setting boundaries is seen as disrespectful. Like, I can't count how many times I've been told that I've been disrespectful, by family. That side of the family, and of course there have been times where I probably set boundaries in a very inelegant way. When I was a youth,
Right.
it probably wasn't the smoothest, but I've always been like, hey, like, I'm not doing that,
Yeah.
and you get a lot of pushback, right? Oh, this doesn't look good. You're so ungrateful, right? Like, make everybody happy. Yeah, why are you being difficult? You're being very difficult, being very disrespectful. So,
Yeah.
oh my God, I have so many memories of that.
I'm in it right now. So I'm in this community right now and I'm here because I want to share our culture with my daughter. She has been raised in the US her whole life and I really wanted for her to spend a few years here in the motherland. And it's a close-knit community and in the last few months I have isolated and just yesterday there was a school event. So I was there and I got comments from people like, oh, you've been hiding or you're not showing yourself. And you know what? It's so nice to be in a place where you have less fucks to give.
Yeah.
Because I was in the space before of, oh, let me just go to these events and these parties because that's what you're supposed to do. And God forbid that they say that I don't know how to, hindi ka marunong, in Tagalog, it's hindi ka marunong makisama, which makisama is like this togetherness.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's such a big, they place a lot of value on it. And I can see that. That's beautiful, but not in the expense of yourself. So I think that's one thing that I want to highlight. If that is a value of yours and you're wanting to uphold that value, what I would say is that, yes, uphold that value, but then always just check back in with yourself. Is this true to me? Does this feel good for me? Is this going to deplete me, or is this going to bring me more energy? And I think about people, places, situations as, is it going to add to my life, or is it going to drain my energy in a time and place where I don't really have much and I'm actually needing to nourish and bring back my life force energy because I just came from a series of travels, for example. You know what I mean? Or I'm like in a time and space where I'm a full single parent and not co-parenting, doing 50-50. So you have to take certain big factors of your life into consideration as well. And I think
Well,
that's what I'm doing right now. It's really helpful. And I'm sorry for the people, not sorry for the people who are like, oh, you're not showing yourself, or you don't know how to do this togetherness thing. It's like, I don't need to explain myself. And I know that this is what's deeply honoring and true to me right now.
that is so powerful. Thank you for standing in your truth and giving zero fucks about meeting other people's expectations. Because personally, I mean, I get that that is a value, and we're such loving people. We are very community, family oriented people, and that is amazing. But I think it's fucked up to presume that you know somebody's energy levels, you know all the things that are on their plate, you know all the things on their calendar. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you're
And so
not
you should
there,
be here.
like,
You should
you
be
don't know
showing
my
up.
life.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, yeah, I'm sure you wanted me to be here, but you know what? I have a lot of things going on that I actually don't have to explain to you. So here I am now. Take a picture.
Right.
And then you can look at the picture when I'm not there. But good for you. But yeah, I can feel, just based on what you've told me, and what I know of our culture, that there's a lot of pressure to conform. And it's really hard to stand your ground, I think, in the midst of all that cultural pressure, especially when the community is so small. And I'm so glad that you're there. I know that you are on like divine assignment there.
My gosh. Don't I know it? You know what? Something just came up. And I think there's a fear that if people don't do that and come into this togetherness, that they will be isolated
Mm-hmm.
and taken away from the tribe or disconnected. And
Yeah,
that's really scary.
ostracized. Yeah.
Ostracized. That's the word that I was looking for. And that's really scary for a lot of people, especially the people who are not really comfortable in their own company. And so I think that is the work to be done, right? Can you be comfortable with your own company? Because the reason why I'm able to do that is because I love my own company. I will travel the world by myself. I will eat by myself. I'll go to concerts, to ecstatic dances, cacao ceremonies, and meet people. Like, that's just who I am. But I could see how that could be really, really scary for other people. And if that's where you're at, I would just honor that and be gentle with yourself and understand that, okay, now I'm treading between wanting to take care of myself, but yet also feeling this fear of not being included. And what would it look like for me to just be in my own company? And I think it's like starting to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yes. And I do think that that is a deep seated fear, subconscious fear for many, many people, an ancient
Yes.
ancestral fear of being, ostracized, excommunicated, banished from the clan. from the
Yeah.
tribe. That's huge. And also, I think in terms of this like low expression of Libra, which is like the people pleasing, not wanting to
Mm-hmm.
rock the boat and
Mm-hmm.
suppressing, your own truth so that you're not disrupting anybody. Um, I read somewhere, and I think I told you this at one point, but basically that like you can't trust people pleasers because the reason they are doing what they're doing is not because they want to help you. It's because they are more concerned about what people think of them, actually. So they're not trustworthy because that is their
Yeah.
number one priority is like their image and their reputation and how other people perceive them. So I know it's kind of harsh, but that rings true for me. And the other thing you said I thought was worth underlining. I mean, all of it, all of everything you're sharing is so potent and so relevant to what I think both you and I are dissolving in our lineages is this idea that boundary setting is actually really loving. And when you love and value somebody, asserting the boundary is actually to help the connection, right? You're saying, I want to be in connection with you. And this is how we can do it so that I feel good about it, right? It's not hurting me. This is how I would like for us to stay in connection with each other. But I think we were both raised with the idea that it's rude to set a boundary. It's rude to say no, but it's actually very loving. And you can love people from afar. Absolutely. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes staying in contact with somebody who's toxic, unfortunately, especially if it's like a family member, staying in contact with them is almost enabling them in their toxic behavior. And so it's like, I'm going to just retreat over here and let you do your thing. And I love you. I love you from afar, but I'm not going to participate in this. But yeah, there's a lot of nuances to all of it. But I think this idea that boundary setting is rude, right? And unladylike, and you're being disagreeable. This is a big thing, not just in our
Well, I
culture.
think
It's
that's
very big in
that's
our culture.
that's why we get to talk about it more, have more of these conversations so that we could reframe it and that we see it from a healthy standpoint that this is actually promoting that connection. And I love how you worded it. And I think it's about communicating it in that way, right? Because if you share that I actually want to communicate, I want to connect, and I'm doing this so that I can foster a better connection between the two of us, then there's more of that context as opposed to just saying no, which you can do. But then I think that it's so beautiful when you provide a little bit more context for why you're doing it in the beginning, especially for people who don't understand. But
Hmm.
if you bringing it out that way and really spell it out for them, I mean, if I were on the receiving end of that, I would be like, wow, yes, of course. Please do that. I'm happy that you're doing that. Thank
Yeah,
you. I would
it's
be
not a
even appreciative of
rejection,
it. No.
right? It's not a rejection. It's an invitation actually to come closer, but just redefine, how we relate to one another. So that work is so important. But what's coming up for me now, which is related to the work that you're doing, is that it's hard to know what is a yes for you and what is a no for you if you're not in your body, right? And so many of us are, you know, as Jan Le Vincent would say, or Jan Le Vincent, neck down dead, right? When you're not in your body, it's hard to know like what is a hell yes and what a hell no is, So I think it's easy to fall into people pleasing or following the crowd or just doing what my parents tell me or what society tells me. Can you speak a little bit about embodiment and pleasure in your work?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because I was actually thinking about that piece when you were speaking and how it's so easy to people please because you may not be tuning into your body's senses to understand that's not in alignment with you. And so I shared in the beginning how my work has evolved. My work evolves from also my experience. When I'm doing the inner work and I'm seeing that there was a piece that just all of a sudden clicked. And now from this point on forward, my reality has shifted. I'm like, what is that piece? That piece needs to be highlighted. And now that I'm embodying it and now that I'm learning or I've learned from that journey, I get to share that within my offerings. And so that is a huge piece. Embodiment. And embodiment can be thought of and explained in so many different ways. And, I'm not going to highlight them all, but I'll highlight a few things. It's inhabiting your body fully, that you're in tune with the various senses, the various feelings that it gives you. And I think this is very much related to your intuition, right? Our intuition can land through things that we see, the things that we hear, the things that we feel and sense. I mean, it could even be what you smell and what you taste, although those are a bit more rare. And the more that I am inhabiting my body and having moments to tune in, which means slow the fuck down, where you're not in this go, 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 let me hustle, let me get shit done mode, which I could speak of so easily because I've had years or a lot of times of doing that. And I still catch myself up until today where I'm in that mode and I get this ping and awareness and remembrance to slow down. And it's in the moments that I slow down, it's the moments that I'm in nature where I'm intentionally just being as opposed to doing. And in that being, it's like, this is the metaphor that I love to use. It's a lake without any ripples. It's so calm. And in that calmness, you can see what's underneath. And you can see what's there to look at. That's how I liken that practice. Because when you're going and doing and being in full masculine mode, which is good and has its purpose, there's going to be all these waves and murky waters. And so I think that practice is one slowing down and really feeling and tuning in. And I like being out in nature and doing that. But I also have specific activities that allow me to do that, like, of course, yoga, meditation. Artwork has been really helpful. And my daughter has been bringing out that creative side in me more often nowadays because she was Waldorf raised. But just, tuning into your breath, dancing, and the pleasure piece is also really huge. The more that I'm able to have practices that really hone my feminine energy, and this is more of like womb work and sacred sexuality practices that I'm sure, of course, as well. I got into that because I had a very long, challenging, traumatic childbirth of almost 40 hours. And since that time, I have really actively learned various methods to heal my pelvic floor, my womb, and understand how I was able to experience something like that. And so through these practices of slowing down, of tuning in, of, let's say, steaming my yoni, or allowing myself to explore my vaginal canal with a crystal, whether that be a crystal egg or a crystal wand, I have more of this connection. I know what's painful. I know what's pleasurable. And from these experiences, then I see that translates to a specific experience that I'm feeling. And I'm like, wait, this is not feeling good in my body, because I know what feels good in my body. I know what feels off and weird and icky. And so these embodiment practices and times of tuning in have allowed me to navigate the world so much more acutely that I'm aware of where I should place myself and where the fuck to get out and just avoid and just divert. So from that experience of these practices, now I know that this gets to be a part of my work. And that's why I share that, like, how there's been the shift recently, because that's clicked in even more so in the last, I would say, 2 years since I moved out of LA, in a city that there's a lot of interference, right? In cities, there's a lot of things that are grabbing our attention. And I find that in being out of the city and being closer to nature, where there's less interference, there's been more times to really understand these sensations, what's underneath the water, so that I'm able to navigate. We're walking in tennis. Now I can say through these practices, my antenna is a bit stronger and it's more acute in moving through life. And this is now what I get to share with other women.
I love that you are sharing this while in the Philippines, because we have such a collective wound around sexuality, our sexual energy. A part of colonial mentality, I think, is, anything that's like indigenous is primitive or of the devil, right? And just from Catholicism, anybody who grew up in like a Catholic culture, in the Catholic Church, were taught that, sex is only for procreation, right? And pleasure is sinful, pleasure is selfish, all these things. And so I love that you are anchoring this new frequency there specifically, because it really, really needs it. Repatterning our relationship with our bodies, with our erotic intelligence. And thank you for mentioning all the different practices, doing the de-armoring of our vaginas with the crystal egg or the jade egg or with a wand. People don't even know these practices exist, but they do exist. They are extremely powerful tools. And if you want to experience transformation in your life, you cannot spiritually bypass the body, because trauma is multidimensional. And once you heal it on one level, it's tricky. It will switch to another dimension, right?
Right.
You might read a book
Yeah.
about healing your sexual energy or whatever, but then it switches dimensions. So you really have to address it on all levels. And that includes your pelvic landscape, the womb work that you were talking about, the root healing work. So that actually brings me to the Ancestral Healing Collective. I mentioned that we engage with pleasure as transformative medicine inside this membership, and we have a new moon pleasure practice every month along with a dance party. So our next one is actually on November 1st. And I think this podcast will be out after that. But every month we do it on the new moon. We're having a Sierra dance party this time. And then another perk of the membership is that I have a guest teacher lead an experience for everybody. I've opened it up to folks who are outside of the membership. They just have to pay $30 now to attend. If you join the membership, it's less expensive, right? It's included. But I do want to talk about the amazing experience that you led, and it's called The Art of Embodied Manifestation. So this is an interactive workshop to support you in consciously creating your soul-aligned vision using neuroscience, embodiment, and energy work. So for those out there who are watching and listening and are interested in experiencing this workshop, what can you tell them in terms of what to expect and how they can best prepare to get the most out of that experience?
Well, two things come to mind. First is coming in with an open mind, no expectations. This might be something that you've never ever done before. And so I think that it garners more of this openness and this willingness to try something that may be completely new to you. And second would be to create sacred space. And what I mean by that is create a container where you are going to be in private. You know that your phone's off, you don't have somebody knocking on your door, or maybe, whatever, put a sign up in your door and just allow yourself to be in a space where you can dive deep, because the deeper you go, the deeper you go. And I love to be able to set that kind of space when I'm working with somebody. And I always promote that just so that they're able to drop in deeper. And I find that when you're feeling safe and held in the container that you're in, deeper transformation can happen. And that's always my intention within the workshops and the offerings that I give out into the world.
I love it. So if you are interested in experiencing that workshop, it is in the resource library of the Ancestral Healing Collective. You can go to heatherrebeccawilson.com to learn all about the membership, what's in the resource library, all the perks. I will put all of the relevant links in the description. So, Xandrine, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. This is called the Cycle Starters podcast. So would you say, in terms of the cycles you are starting, you're starting a cycle of ownership? And is there anything else you would add to the cycles you're starting?
Yes. And it's something that I'm still, of course, a work in progress in, but there's a strong intention to bring out authentic expression where it's moving away from the people pleasing and what do I think I should say to this person, or what do I think I should share in my work, as opposed to what's really true and authentic to me. And the reason why I say it's a work in progress is because I know that there is work to be done around sexuality and claiming it in a very sacred way. And I'm still in the process of really putting this work out to the fullest capacity that I know I can. And so that is a huge piece that I intend to bring forward, not only in myself, but in the future generations, because it's healing of the witch wound as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that it's not safe to really be in my full power, owning my gifts and sharing it out into the world. Because our lineage, my ancestry, comes from an ancestry of healers and warriors and leaders. And there's a lot of power in that, but it was suppressed.
Yeah.
And I am unleashing that and letting that come out in divine timing. And it is already coming out, but I know that there's layers of unfolding. And that is what I'm claiming.
Amazing.
And all its juiciness and glory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please be glorious and juicy for the world, for the planet, for the collective of humanity. We need you. And I have such deep appreciation for you. And I'm very inspired by you. And I can't wait to visit you in the Philippines and have just the best time. Well, so if folks want to learn more about what you do, or if they want to work with you, where should they go to find out more?
Yeah, I would say I would love to connect on Instagram. I am sharing a whole new rebrand in that space very, very soon. So at Xandrine Ayla. And this rebrand is also going to be moving forward within my website as well. So Xandrine, XANDRINE.com is also a space where you can find me and you can connect with me, find more about my work and what I do. And lastly, my podcast, Magnetic Self Podcast, which is out on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
I love it. You're doing it. You're out there doing the work. I love it. And helping so many people. So I love you. I just am so inspired by you, as I've already said. But yeah, just thanks for being in conversation with me on all of these juicy topics. I think this is good to get these conversations out there. So thanks, everybody. And we will see you next time on the Cycle Starters podcast. Take care.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.